बुंदेलखंड से सरदार गोविंद पंत बुंदेले, सरदार बलवंत राव मेहंदड़े, ग्वालियर से सरदार जनकोजी शिंदे और सरदार दत्ताजी शिंदे, इंदौर से सरदार मल्हार राव होळकर।
बोल धरती जयकारा, गगन है सारा गूंजा रे। जग में लहराया न्यारा ध्वज है हमारा ऊंचा रे।
हम वो योद्धा वो निडर, हम जो भी दिशा में जाए,
सारे पथ चरण छुए और पर्वत शीस नवाए।
रास्ते से हट जाए नदियां हो के हवाए।
हम है जियाले जीतने को, हम रण में उतरते हैं। हम सूरज है अंत, हम ही रातों का करते हैं। युग युग की जंजीरों को हमने ही काटा रे। बोल उठा ये जग सारा, जय मर्द मराठा रे।
जो रक्त है तन में बहता,
वो हमसे है ये कहता,
सम्मान के बदले जान भी दे तो नहीं है घाटा रे।
युग युग की जंजीरों को हमने ही काटा रे। बोल उठा ये जग सारा, जय मर्द मराठा रे। युग युग की जंजीरों को हमने ही काटा रे। बोल उठा ये जग सारा, जय मर्द मराठा रे।
All right, welcome to the show. This right here is going to be certainly to simplify the reason why I do not trust Turkey Sheikh, TKO, Riyadh season, the whole lot of them. Let's just start off. If you look on the thumbnail of my video, you'll clearly see Al Hayr prison. Okay, Al Hayr prison has a wing called the Tutu wing. Okay, and this wing of Al Hayr prison in Saudi Arabia is specifically for people like social media, content creators, could be journalists, anybody that's critiquing Turkey al-Sheikh. He sentenced an Ahmed Mohammed Omar to 19 years or the Saudi government sentenced Omar to 19 years for criticizing Turkey al-Sheikh and his Egyptian club that he was in charge of at the time. And that right there is one of my first red flags outside of his growing relationship with Mohammed bin Salman. And that situation there, it kind of trickles down into how he got into power. His last name was able to get him into the royal court. Yeah. And a bunch of the being behind a line of succession and everything has just, because things kind of go horizontally in Saudi monarchy. So it goes from a king to his brother, and then from the brother to the nephew, and all that other line of succession that they do. It's not like a father passes down a title to his son, unless if there's some type of dispute, I imagine. But And Turki al-Sheikh was behind Mohammed bin Salman being appointed successor for the Saudi kingdom, or the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And so it's pretty easy in trying to explain this. You know, like he was involved in absolute dog shit. I know he's been involved with a Spaniard club, club in Spain called Almeida. That right there was absolutely. It was decent to see a club like that kind of rise up, not to be on it, or not to be too cruel on him, but you know we need to be cruel on him because what we're going to tell you. Um, when he was put in charge of the Saudi entertainment, it was pretty obvious that he was with his friendship with Mohammed bin Salman, that he would have a huge amount of access to Saudi funds, it's like a bankroll. In 2015 and 2016, around the time when Jamal Khashoggi was killed in Istanbul, by people, or by I guess you could say personnel from internal services, if you know what I mean. They hunted him down at the Saudi embassy, and they they chopped him up into bits, and they took him out of the embassy and bought it in multiple suitcases and travel bags. And so it's his whole entire deal. It's what kind of person he is. And it's pretty obvious that Turkey al-Sheikh thinks he has things in control. Now we can move on to Riyadh season. Okay, so Riyadh season is is directly funded by the Saudi government. This is not news at all. This is blatantly obvious. But if you're willing to, invest or trust in somebody that would uh, that would screw people in, in royal courts and stuff of that nature, that right there is just, I guess, your prerogative, and you're part of the problem here. Of course, a lot of people are afraid to talk about Turkey al-Sheikh having Al Hayr prison wing, Tutu wing, all for the people that criticize Turkey al-Sheikh. He has over 5,000 people sitting in the Tutu wing, bro. It's not even, they literally call it the Tutu wing. So, so this right here is public information, and you can look it up, and there's not much digging. Look up Al Hayr prison. Freaking hilarious, man. Look up the Tutu wing while you're at it, too. Um, Turkey al-Sheikh, he seems like he's trying to be big dog and everything like that. He hasn't done shit, and I'm not impressed with Turkey al-Sheikh. And there's nothing you can really say because Turkey is just thinking he's taking over the reins with TKO, and trying to force a boxing league, and having Dana White being the promoter of that league because he built UFC up from scratch, which is not true. It was the Fertitta brothers who actually helped Dana White get into position anyway. They're the people who had the money. Those are the people who had the investors. And yeah, Dana White, he ends up buying it out, uh, you know, funneling in money for himself, and then buying the rights, the overall rights to the UFC. And, this whole entire segment that Dana has always run the UFC has always been a complete and total load of shit because the Furtada brothers are the ones who put up the big money in the beginning anyway. With Turkey Sheik trusting Dana White to run whatever boxing league that they're trying to deal with, they're trying to buy out the best boxers to run through this league and everything. At first, it's probably going to be ran as like a prospect. Uh, they're trying to buy out the best prospects and stuff like that, and try to grow it from there because trying to get the sanctioning bodies on board with what you're doing is part of the reason why they're trying to get a boxing league in the first place. They make a unified boxing organization, which is short is UBO. Um, there's too much conflict there with the sanctioning bodies. The sanctioning bodies, people say, oh, our problem is the sanctioning bodies. But listen, the more time has gone by, the more organizations have gotten involved in the sport of boxing. It's just clear as day. It doesn't stop with the WBA, WBC, WBO, IBF, and IBO. Hell, you still have other organizations out there that still sanction boxing events. Till this day, and you know, multiple uh, multiple sources will tell you that. You can literally type that up on Google, and it will freaking tell you that there's more organizations in boxing than just the normal ABC bodies and the IBO. And it's quite simple because nobody seems to trust the sanctioning bodies. Yet they want to trust this new guy coming in, buying up talent, and trying to make try to buy out everything in the WWE, trying to buy out everything in UFC, and trying to buy. You could basically say the buyout is there in the UFC, and the buyout is there for boxing. We have to be very, very careful here. We have to be very, very careful here. And putting too much trust, you're gonna notice that the man is a wolf in sheep's clothing very, very soon. I've been warning people about this for a long, long time. But him having 5,000 people in Al Hair prison, the Tutu wing specifically holding 5,000 people that have criticized him, and people being sentenced to 20 years for criticizing him. There's probably no telling how many of those 5,000 are in there for 20 years, to be honest. But, hopefully we can get some numbers on that. I know that Ahmed Mohamed Omar is the first, has been sentenced to 19 years recently. There was another guy who got sentenced to 20 years for criticizing him. There's been just so many reports about Turkey Al Sheikh's evil dealings and throwing people in Al Hayr prison for just criticizing it. And yet, here you guys in America, combat sports, content creators, you guys are literally taking the knee and really, really trying to push Turkey Al Sheikh on the rest of the USA. What has he done for the American fighter? Really? Because the only thing he's gonna do is he's gonna damage the American market, and you guys are just going to sit over there and be like, "Oh, money's money, man," and because you guys have no principle, you guys have no gumption, you guys have no integrity, bro. You have to have integrity in this sport. If you're even if you're the man putting money into the sport. What's up, Vamos Gatos? Man, we're 1-3 this year. Tired of it. Man. Hopefully we can get the season turned around if the coach doesn't get torched first. But moving on, Turkey Al Sheikh, he has a lot of things that need to be really, really looked at. You know, him having a whole entire wing of Al Hayr prison designated for people who have critiqued Turkey Al Sheikh. These are 5,000 men, 5,000 men, and also a huge percentage of those 5,000 men are serving sentences like 20-year sentences just because they were criticizing him running a football or a soccer club in Egypt, to be exact, which is hilarious. Of course, Turkey Al Sheikh cannot take criticism because he will throw you in prison or he will try to do anything to stomp you out, whether if it is screwing you over through business tactics like he has done with Tank Davis, for example. That right there is because Tank Davis didn't agree with him. He tried to snub out his opposition. Is exactly what happened. If you snub Tank Davis by having his opposition and him being a American market fighter, bro, you have to look at it like that. Would you trust somebody that can't take criticism, bro? Because Turkey Al Sheikh cannot take criticism. He gets butthurt. He opens up prison, or he has a whole entire wing of a prison designated for throwing you in jail if you criticize him. Hell, I wish I could go up to him in public and tell him that you are a clown. That you like fixing fights. You like spiking fighters' water, bro. I'm untouchable, bro. And I will tell it to him in his face. I don't care what he thinks. I don't care what anybody who supports him thinks. Because they really are not doing their research on Turkey Al Sheikh. It is that simple, bro. It is hilarious. It's absolutely clown worthy. It's like, what are you guys sucking up to? Do you guys even know? Do you guys even know minutely what you are getting in? You guys try to say, oh, he's making the best fight the best. No, he's making what he wants happen. He's not necessarily making the best fight the best. I mean, here's some facts. Turkey Al-Sheikh, he is he is he's decent with these high profile prospects. You know what I mean? Um, a lot of the prospects from Nashville, Queensberry. I mean, you see a little bit of PBC fighters. You know, taking the one fight deals just to get some, basically just to get some money, while PBC straightens up their business. Which is all right, I guess. I mean, imagine somebody in Riyadh season criticizing Turkey Al-Sheikh like Ryan Garcia has criticized Oscar De La Hoya, right? I guarantee you, if Turkey Al-Sheikh, somebody was signed to Riyadh season, and they criticized Turkey Al-Sheikh to the level that Ryan Garcia criticized Oscar De La Hoya, that he would throw you into the tutu wing of Al Hayr prison for probably 20 years for hurting his little feelings. You know, does he need milk and cookies after crying for 2 hours? So, with Turkey Al-Sheikh trying to take over uh, with this boxing league concept with Dana White. This whole entire TKO concept is a failed concept because they're trying to ruin American athletic markets. Like with WWE, if you even want to call it that, you can really call it entertainment or kayfabe or scripted fighting, which is also a big red flag for with its association under the TKO umbrella with the Riyadh season and the UFC, which makes you wonder if this unified boxing organization, this boxing league, that concept that they're trying to come up with, is going to be achievable in the first place. We have to really check, because in order for them to do this boxing, they're going to need the rule change, and they have a meeting in California, I believe in November, or which is November or December, so in like a month or so. And it's not only California that they're worried about, because you can't just have a boxing in a random state. It has to go through the Association of Boxing Commissions, which is over the athletic commissions in the United States. And of course, you also have to get the Supreme Court, or not Supreme Court. That's a big fumble right there. A fumble of words. But it needs to get that passed through Congress. This Muhammad Ali. They're trying to pass this to stomp out the Ali Act, or they want to try to modernize the Ali Act, which is relatively young at only being, what, 24 years old at the oldest. That, you know, the concept of it has worked out, even though that you have had people getting swindling around all the act, kind of like, you know, you know how it's worked. Rather it be, advisors acting as managers as well, and you know the advisors have this special role in the sport of boxing. And so you have to really, really look at it. One thing that the U.S. or that the one thing that needs to also be looked at in this bill that's being presented to Congress is, the financial pay, the the due the due compensation for performing. You know what I mean? This right here, uh, we already know that the UFC only has a handful of guys that make marquee money. And that's other things, one of the other reasons I don't trust Turkey Al, because I believe that he has enticed people to trust his product by showing them the initial showing of these big fights, when his intention is to accept this new business model under this unified boxing organization to compensate his fighters at peanuts, basically. Paying and paying an Olympic level opponent, or like an Olympic gold medalist, $20,000 in their first fight is absolute dog shit. Okay, if you look at it from the business side of boxing, okay, you look at your Jake Pauls of the world, you look at your fighters that draw in big money without even facing real opposition or marquee opposition. Yet here we are, him facing a lightweight in Tank Davis, which who knows, Tank Davis could be 150 pounds coming in the ring on the fight night. But you have to look at the whole entire business model and how fighters are being compensated for their services when it comes to performing in boxing. This right here is a simple talking point. I talked about this with multiple content creators around the YTBC. Yet, there's a huge percentage of them that want to bend the knee to Turkey, and that is their problem. It is not my problem that they have issues accepting what's really going on in the sport. And no matter what happens, the sport of boxing, or the people in the sport of boxing, the supporters of the sport of boxing, and the people within the business side of boxing are trying to have a foreign or this uh, investment from the Saudis. Yeah, this is some PR push. You know, Before Saudi Arabia started with this Riyadh season and project and this skills challenge project, um, solid promotions and all that good loaded garbage. Um, you have to just look at it all. And what have they been putting on for the past couple of years, especially? I'll tell you now, I don't trust Turk. Never will trust Turk. Never will trust Dana White in the sport of boxing because he's known for jibbing his talent. He's absolutely clown worthy. He's absolutely clown worthy, and he's cried and cried again, and there will be issues coming up. So we have a. I don't even seeing the bill even get passed through Congress. To be honest, I don't see this act being approved by Congress. I think Dana White believes that Trump will honor him with support for this new act that they're trying to push through Congress. But it's not going to happen that way. Let's just be realistic. There's the fighter. It's the whole entire market you really have to be concerned about. And the thought that somebody unified, or it's like we're going back 100 years, bro. Like really, almost 100 years. Well, go back to the days when there were only one or two world title belts. The two belt time period, or even a one belt. But even back in the day, okay, there used to be multiple, multiple bodies that would be known as world champions. Like up in Quebec, for example, they were known for having, um, they were known for having like their own little sanctioning body back in the early days before the 50s. And the fact of the matter is, people are under this weird fixation that boxing is all. We need to go back to the way boxing used to be with one belt, one sanction belt. Well, that hasn't totally been true since the days of Jack Dempsey. So, with all that being said, I'm getting off of here. Everybody, thank you for showing support, watching the video, and till the next one.